Now that we can start and stop the clock, there's only one more thing we need, the ability to take laps. When a user taps on the lap button, the current time should be recorded in the bottom half of the app, and the timer should be reset to 0 but keep running. So let's start with the easier of the two, resetting the timer but allowing it to keep on running. Let's take a look at handle start press inside of index.ios.js. Here we go. So this is the function that's ran whenever a user taps on the start button. Take a look at elapsed time. Elapsed time is new date minus start time. So really what we want to do in order to reset the timer to 0 is set start time to the current time, right? That would be like doing new date, where new date is, of course, the current time. That would make elapsed time elapsed, reset to 0, which is exactly what we want. So basically what we need to do is have the ability to reset start time to 0 without running this function right here. Well, to do that, you might guess how we're going to make it happen. It is, of course, by setting the start time on this .state as well. So to make that happen, we'll say this .setState start time is new date. Then inside of our interval function here, instead of making a reference to start time, we'll make a reference to this .state .start time. Finally, let's not forget to update our get initial state at the top of the page. So we'll scroll up and we'll say start time is null. Cool. So this is looking pretty good. At this point, our app should be running exactly as it was before. So we should still be able to start the clock and stop it, and the time should run just as it was before. So let's go ahead and just confirm that really quick. Let's refresh. We can start, we can stop. Looks good. Start again. Exactly what we want. Cool. The next thing we need to do for our lap button to get functional is to add a click handler and a touchable highlight to it. Remember, we don't currently have a touchable highlight on it right now, just a view component. So if a user taps it, well, it's not really going to be that evident that they're tapping it. So let's find our lap button helper, which is right here. We're going to replace the view in here with essentially the same code that's running for our start stop button. The view is now going to be a touchable highlight. We're going to set the underlay color to gray. And we're going to also assign an onPress handler. So remember, the idea behind the onPress handler is that we're going to provide a function here. Whenever a user taps on the button, our function will be called. So we'll call this function this.handleLapPress. Let's immediately go ahead and define that function right now. So we'll add handleLapPress. That's going to be a function, and don't forget the comma afterwards here. Now that this callback is defined, we're going to record the current lap time. So remember, when a user presses the lap button, we want to record the current lap time, right? Well, that lap time is very easy to get at. It's just this.state.time elapsed. Time elapsed is always the current value of the clock. So we'll save that on the variable lap for right now. The next thing we need to do is to reset the timer to 0. We can reset the timer to 0 by making use of this.state.startTime, which we just set up. So we'll say this.setState start time equals new date. So let's test this out inside of the simulator really quick, and then if it works, we'll go ahead and do one last run through of exactly what's happening here. So I'm going to refresh the simulator. We'll start, and now when I click the lap button, we should see the time go back to 0. And it looks like it does. Fantastic. This is exactly what we wanted. And I can, of course, still go ahead and stop the clock as well. Cool, this looks great. So let's talk really briefly, one last walkthrough here of exactly how we're resetting the time with a lap press. The first thing we did was moved start time onto state. We did this because we want to be able to not change the value of time elapsed. We want to just let time elapsed continue to recompute all the time. The only way that we can change time elapsed then is to change the starting time of it. We change the starting time of it by moving start time to the state property. Then, when a user taps the lap button, we'll just update the start time to the current time, to exactly right now, the instant that the user taps the button. Then, the next time that the interval function runs, time elapsed will essentially be equal to new date minus new date, plus or minus a few milliseconds. That means that time elapsed is going to go all the way back down to 0, and then as the interval function keeps running, this state.start time will fall further into the past. So new date minus start time will start to increase, and that's what makes our timer run the clock up again. All right, so lots of confusing time stuff. I don't know about you, but programming with time really makes my head hurt. It's just not always the most intuitive thing. But anyways, we've definitely got our clock working, and the last thing we need to do is make sure that the lap that we're saving here shows up on the list of laps at the bottom. So let's tackle that in the next section.